Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Cigar Salute. I'm your host, Dan, and I apologize for the lack of material on the channel the last few months. Rest assured, I got something good coming for you guys at the end of the month. But in lieu of bringing that to you this evening, there's a topic that's come up, a situation that's been going on for a while, and it really needs to be discussed sooner than later. So, without further ado, I'm going to get into the task at hand for the evening. Welcome back. So, we are just coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing effects here in the U.S. Largely, not 100%, but slowly but surely life is going back to normal. The same cannot necessarily be said in terms of international travel, and not every country is handling COVID in the exact same time frame, and not every country has totally beaten this thing yet. Cuban cigars are a world market. And coronavirus was a world issue, is a world issue. Unfortunately, it was apparent from the very start of the pandemic that the Cuban cigar industry was going to be affected, and it was affected almost immediately. While the worst of what we dealt with at the start of the pandemic was shipping issues and some moderate price increases and some pretty drastic price increases on select cigars, for the most part, we were business as usual in a lot of other ways, because we still, for the most part, had access to the full catalog that Habanos SA has to offer. And we even saw the return of some cigars that were very sporadic in production. I think 2020 kicked out a record number of Cohiba Behique for the last 5 years or so at least. I saw more 2020 boxes of Cohiba last year and early this year. Those are the most boxes of Behiques that I've seen come out in 1 year since I've been on any cigar forums on Facebook or anywhere else where folks are posting their mail calls. We've also seen the return of cigars that have not been around for a couple of years now. First, we saw the return of the Partagas 898, the Lonsdale from Partagas that comes in an 898 cabinet. We have also even just recently seen the return of the much lauded and coveted La Gloria Cubana MDO number 4, the 6x32 slim Panatella that magically just vanished from shelves one day in late 2019, and we were all very unsure about the status of the cigar for quite a while. Was it discontinued or not? Were they just doing a so-called Partagas 898 move with it? We have now seen the return of the MDO number 4, thankfully, because that is, it is La Gloria Cubana's only regular production cigar that still exists in production, period, or is listed as being in production. And thankfully, we know it's back in production now. And B, it's a great fucking cigar. There's just no getting around it. It is a very complex and fantastic example of a cigar that can be light in strength, but very complex and satisfying in flavor. I have just over half a cabinet of 2017 MDO number 4s left. And I have to say that after smoking one the other day, they just keep getting better and better. Truly, truly an elegant cigar. Floral and sweetness, almost like a chorus of floral notes, and such fragrant flowery notes that it almost smells perfumed. and the retrohale is a dream on that cigar. And we also get some of the Cohiba Siglo style pastry sweetness at the base of the flavor for the MDO number 4. So it is just a fantastic cigar that I am very thankful we didn't lose. Actually, I very luckily scored a cabinet from cigars-of-cuba.com last week, and within 6 days they were at my doorstep. Both the MDO number 4 and the Partagas 898 have increased in price substantially from the last time they were available on the market in 2019. So when you see that, you need to be aware of that and know that it's not a fluke or because the cigars just got back out to market and they're going to drop the price in another month when they get another shipment. That's not what's going to happen. If anything, every single cigar from Habanos SA is about to get more expensive in the coming months. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So while 2020 and 2021 have continued to bring excellent production quality to us, the prices have steadily increased to the point where some cigars are double the price that they were pre-pandemic. And some cigars have literally gone up hundreds of dollars in value per box. The reason that things like this are happening, and to make the situation worse, is we have an out-of-stock situation right now that is absolutely malignant and spreading all over. If you look through the inventory of your favorite online vendor today, I can almost guarantee that you will find more cigars sold out than they have in stock. A larger percentage of their inventory that covers Habanos SA's catalog will likely be sold out more than there are available cigars. That's what we're seeing at quite a few vendors. There may be a couple that are still sitting pretty right now, but we're going to break the situation down tonight, and we're going to talk about what's to come in the oncoming months, and we're going to speak about what you can do to prepare yourself for this eventuality. So when the pandemic started, international travel was one of the first things to cease. And the problem started on the distribution end because the way that Cuba was exporting the majority of their cigars was through passenger airline flights. A postal service or a company buys space in the freight area of a passenger plane, and they send out some of their freight with it. And that is the way that Habanos SA conducted business with the majority of its distributors. Immediately after the pandemic, shipments had complications with this very issue, and the workaround wound up being that companies like Pacific Cigar and Tabacalera SA actually rented Connex containers and began loading these Connex containers with product to be distributed to their respective markets. And obviously, those will take longer to get to their destination than an airline flight would. So we saw hiccups in the distribution end right off the bat during the pandemic. And we also saw hiccups in the production end, with production being reduced to 50% of its normal capacity. Rollers in the galleries and everyone working in the factories had to take social distancing into account, which means that in an already cramped area with a lot of people, they had to cut a large portion of their workforce from working at the same time. And if one person got sick in that vicinity, many people around them had to return home as well and isolate. Now, I'm not speaking out against these precautions or anything. It's just an unfortunate collateral effect of the pandemic. And these are things that we didn't feel the effects of immediately after. Because what did we do as cigar smokers when the pandemic began? Those of us who were fortunate enough to keep our jobs and continue working, and those of us who were fortunate enough to keep our jobs but perhaps work at home, those of us who found ourselves without the ability to go out and do things, but still being blessed enough to have access to their full income. The majority of us smoked more cigars because we had more time to smoke them. And also, many of us used this opportunity to shore up our collections. I've been quietly shoring up my collection since COVID began. And a large reason for that was a getting while the getting is good mentality. We know that 2019, 2018, and 2020 have been hallmark years for Cuban cigar production. It's definitely the best quality tooth cigars right now than any time since I began smoking Cuban cigars in 2013 and 14. So to stock up on 2019 and 20 boxes and now 21 boxes, it ain't a bad thing by any stretch. As the pandemic has gone on, we are seeing more and more of the effects that the pandemic had on the Cuban tobacco industry. The next issues that Cuba faced outside of their production and distribution end came with agricultural effects. Travel between towns in Cuba even was restricted. So some workers could not go to harvest the crops from the vegas that they worked on because of COVID restriction. This resulted in a reduced harvest, and we are also now seeing the effects from a poor harvest a year or two ago that has not yielded enough wrapper leaf that is designated to be high enough quality to go on Habanos SA export grade products. So Robusto size and up particularly have been affected by this lack of quality wrapper leaf. You are seeing less and less large-sized cigars available from the vendors these days, and on top of which, the ones that are in stock have gone up in price in a very notable way. So know that the lack of proper wrapper leaves is the culprit for this issue. And I want to give a shout out to Dirk, aka Dutch Cigars at LCDH Maastricht, because he is the first one that came out publicly about this issue a few months ago in a video he posted on his YouTube. And you guys should definitely make acquaintances with him and follow him. Remember, this guy is an LCDH owner, and you should probably have a chat with them if you're looking for direct access to an LCDH. Hint, hint. So, Dutch Cigars was the first person to touch on this issue. And most recently, I've decided that it needs to be discussed now because in addition to this video that Dirk made a few months ago, we now have two websites writing detailed articles about this exact issue on Ministry of Cigars and cigars-connect.com. Both published similar but excellent articles on this very topic. This is a hot potato subject, and I didn't want to come and address you guys and be like, listen, Doomsday is coming. We got to get 40 boxes of Monte Cristo number 4s. We got to stash everything we possibly can away. Every fucking niche brand, get 10 of each. And have like a fucking Noah's Ark of Habanos SA's catalog for the dark days ahead. That's not what I wanted to do. I definitely don't want to send you guys in panic mode. But in addition to these articles, I have spoken directly with the owner of a regional sub-distributor of Habanos SA and a fellow LCDH owner. And he has told me personally, and this isn't, through a friend of a friend or anything. This is a direct conversation I had with a La Casa del Habano owner and regional sub-distributor for Habanos SA. He has told me that Habanos SA is borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and they are going to be, by the end of the year, cutting his shipments in half to bulk up the shipments that go out to the larger distributors. So I know what you guys are thinking, and several of you guys have emailed me about this and left comments on the channel, and I just want to set the record straight right now. Excuse me. China and Asia Pacific are not responsible for the shortage. I know some of you guys were quick to blame the Chinese, but let me just break it down right now, because Habanos SA actually released the official stats about 2 months ago at their virtual Habanos festival, which I will be covering the details of in my next feature coming out in a couple of weeks. But just know that for right now, as it pertains to our conversation, China is, yes, the largest individual market for Cuban cigars in terms of one country. This one country, which is a very large country and includes Hong Kong, which has its own cabal of Cuban cigar enthusiasts. China accounts for 30% of Habanos SA's business. They did last year anyway. That is the first time that they were number one. It has always been Spain prior to which. But 60% of Habanos SA's business globally goes to Western Europe. 60%. So, yes, China might get a good amount of inventory going to it because it's a very large market, for sure. But 60 is bigger than 30. You understand? And Asia Pacific, nor Asia Pacific Intertabac AG or Fifth Avenue from Germany, or Diadema from Italy, or Coprova from France, or Tabacalera from Spain, none of them are the largest Cuban cigar distributor for any particular country. Or region, I should say, excuse me. The largest regional distributor for Habanos SA is actually Phoenicia. Phoenicia. They are located in Cyprus, and they cover the Middle East and most of Africa as well, and some other countries in the Mediterranean. So, understand that this borrowing from Peter to pay Paul and pulling volume from the shipments of the smaller distributors to give them to larger distributors, that's going to get spread out amongst the distributors that I just named, most likely, mainly, Fifth Avenue and Intertabac, and then, Pacific Cigar. So you'll probably see the bulk of that freight go to those three distributors and maybe a couple of others. You're not going to see it all go to China. So just get that out of your head. So when we come back, we're going to discuss how you can prepare for the upcoming situation and the ongoing situation that's already started. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. So what can you do about the ongoing problems and the problems to come? Well, first thing that you can do is screenshot this list that's about to go up. All right, then. So, happy hunting, gents and ladies. If you currently have any cigars that are on your wish list that maybe perhaps you just didn't want to drop the coin on at the time, or you are almost out of your favorite cigars and you just haven't gotten around to buying another box, I would advise you that while you can still get them with relative ease, you get them now. You don't have to go crazy and buy 20 boxes of everything, and you definitely should not see this as an opportunity to buy 50 boxes of prestige cigars and think that you're going to walk into a group next year and sell them for triple what you paid. And I can tell you that if you do that, you will not be doing it in my group. That's for goddamn sure. The point of the matter is, you will notice, if you haven't been looking, that the prices on even staple cigars that aren't known to be super prestige cigars, that are, maybe they're classics and they're legendary, but, the cigar like the Monte Cristo number 4 or the Monte Cristo number 2 or the Hoyo de Monterrey Epicure number 2 or Bolivar Petit Coronas. Cigars like those are staples and very popular in the Habanos community, but have never been known to really break the bank. But we are now seeing, whether it's first party or gray market retailers, price increases on all of those. And the funny thing is that first party retailers have actually adjusted their prices a lot less than the gray market ones. And it makes sense when you think about it. The holes in Habanos SA's distribution system are really being exposed as the pandemic goes on. If you understand how the distribution system works between first-party retailers like Habano Specialists and La Casa del Habano franchises, and the difference between those and the gray market, where the gray market is unlicensed retailers that are buying extra stock at the mercy of regional distributors and retailers who want to get rid of overstock or dead stock or make an extra buck off of their deliveries. Because the quicker and more volume that a regional distributor does and that a retailer does, the more access to prestige cigars that they get. I know that La Casa del Habano and Habano Specialist shops in Italy under Diadema, for every 4 boxes of regular cigars that they sell, regular production cigars, they get access to 1 regional edition box of cigars in their next shipment. So retailers and distributors are incentivized to turn over volume as much and as quickly as possible. And that is what keeps the grain market thriving and has kept it alive for the over 2 decades now. The problem is, and the gray market vendors, if I'm a gambling man, this is me speculating, but taking an educated guess based on what I observe of the Cuban cigar market globally, we're not seeing so much of the regional distributors suffering in supply now, even though they are, but we're not seeing it nearly as drastically right now as first-party retailers, because they have been allowed to shore up their inventories with overstock or extra stock from distributors around the world. They don't have to play by the rules and only get from their authorized regional distributor like the first-party retailers do. But as time goes on, right now it's just a price increase at gray market vendors. Their prices are by far worse than the first-party retailers right now. You'll always get the better deal at an LCDH or a Habano Specialist. But if paying a few extra dollars to get access to the cigars, when you know that the quality from 2018 to 2021, and yes, 2017 and 16, they're really good as well. But I believe that mid-2018 on is exponentially better. While you have access to this really already legendary vintages, take advantage of it, because we're being told now that the 2020 harvest wasn't as good as one would have hoped, and we're already told that inclement weather early this year did a number on the 2021 harvest for Cuba. So we could be coming to a hiccup in this golden age of Cuban cigar production. And just as it took a year and a half or so for things to start to come to a head here with the shortage situation, it's going to take a period of equal or more time to fix everything. So we're being told now that for the next 2 years at least, we're going to be feeling the effects of this scenario. We wouldn't even be hearing about this many details regarding the situation if Habanos SA had something else that they could put into play to prevent this from happening. I know some folks might be thinking that at the 11th hour, a solution will magically appear and will have the day saved. But the Cubans can't magically make more wrapper leaves appear. And Cuba has already affirmed that they will not sacrifice quality of their cigars in order to fulfill demand. The Cubans know that if they do that again, they could lose customers that they'll never get back. Habanos SA and Cuba at large are still suffering from the quote-unquote black period that lasted between 1998 and 2001. Now, obviously, this was before my time, but it is spoken about in Cuban cigar enthusiast circles relatively often, because if you, as a Cuban cigar enthusiast, have ever walked into an American cigar shop and had a chat with your fellow smokers about Cuban cigars, if you've ever muttered the word Cuban cigar in an American cigar shop, you are almost guaranteed to have the cigars that were produced, the poor reputation of the cigars that were produced during the black period thrown in your face when they tell you that, oh, all the good rollers moved out of Cuba and they had all just a bunch of untrained dipshits rolling cigars, and they overfilled the cigars and none of them drew. I would buy a box and 20 out of 25 I'd have to toss because they were fucking 10 pegs. And, you know, the reputation of Cuban cigars from that time was either overfilled or underfilled sticks, raw leaf that wasn't properly aged and fermented, and poorly trained rollers rolling cigars that did not draw or smoke well. As soon as Altadis at the time purchased a 50% stake in Habanos SA in the year 2000, by the time 2001's production started, things had already started to turn around. And by 2003 and 4, these issues were largely corrected to a degree, and the quality of the cigars became that much, it became excellent once again by the time the mid-2000s came. And working our way up to the late 2010s, quality had continued to increase on the production and manufacturing end. There was a couple of years with less than stellar harvests, but the Cubans persevere through anything you throw at them. The resilience of this people is nothing short of awe-inspiring, and it's to be respected. But because of that respect and that pride, the Cubans know better than to fuck it up again this time. And they're not going to do it. And they have investors and shareholders now on the distribution end with Habanos SA and this Hong Kong outfit, Allied Cigar, which purchased the 50% stake from Imperial Brands last year. They have these people to answer to if they start making any funny decisions. So the reputation of the Habano will stand. It's just a matter of riding out the storm. In the coming months, you're going to see the gray market vendor prices go up even more, and you will likely see their inventories really start to dwindle by the end of the year, and especially going into the next few months, the first few months of 2022. I believe personally that you will see a very, very reduced capacity inventory from most of the gray market vendors. We're already seeing vendors like Cigar One with almost completely blown out shelves. Really, there's a handful of vendors on these lists that you really got to check them every day because they're constantly posting new inventory and it sells out very fast. So we already covered that number one steps you could take to prepare for the ongoing and upcoming shortage. Don't sleep on purchasing cigars that you have been meaning to buy for a while. Number two, be aware that the upcoming vintages may not be as strong as the ones that are available today. Like I said, we had a supposedly poor harvest this year and a mediocre harvest in 2020. Even if you have a decent stock of certain cigars today, does not mean that when it's time for you to buy some more in 2022, you may not be as lucky with the quality of the cigars that you get. So understand that the getting is good right now. And this is just suggestions. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. But when folks ask what I'm doing personally, that's what I'm doing. I have purchased some beautiful boxes over the last couple of months, and many of them are backups of my favorite cigars. When you see the quality of 2020 and 2021 production, you will be inspired. And I gotta say, I just received a September 2020 box of St. Louis Rey Regios from Friends of Habanos the other day. Take a look at these cigars. I've been showing you guys photos of other recent scores over the past couple of minutes over me talking. Check out the quality on 2020 and 2021. It's nothing short of remarkable. So, I'm just saying. And finally, what we can do is, if you haven't already, like I said earlier, the shortage that is really being discussed and the one that's really problematic for retailers and distributors right now is the shortage of large format cigars. Like I said, I'm being told that anything Robusto sized or larger is considered to be in especially short supply at the moment. This hopefully leaves us, at the very least, with continued access to some legendary Petit Coronas. And I have said many times, and I'm going to say it again, that Cuba, bar none, with a bullet, however you want to say it, produces the best small format cigars on the planet. There is not a single other tobacco producing nation on earth that has companies that produce cigars of the caliber of the small Vitola Cubans. Nothing coming out of the DR, nothing coming out of Nicaragua. And yes, there are some great small format cigars, but the volume of them, the availability of those cigars, there's no promotion to them, no push. A lot of times they're not available in shops in the U.S. unless they're requested, or unless it's a really, really hip shop that really is knowledgeable on the current offerings from boutique brands and whatnot, because people all over do recognize the value of a small format cigar. And with the success with Cuban cigars of cigars like the El Rey del Mundo La Reina 2018 regional edition for the UK, and most recently the Punch Mantua, or as my boy Anthony would say, Manoir. Maybe I pronounced that wrong too, but this guy's always calling me out my fucking pronunciation. You know, I try to Google shit before I make the video, but I'd rather you guys just laugh at my attempts at getting it correct, and feel free to politely correct me in the comments. But long story longer, the reaction to the Punch Mantua, in my cigar club a few months ago, I watched a 5 spot of these Punch Mantua fetch for 300 USD. When we know that this cigar started out at about 13 or 14 euros when it was released. So the demand for thin format cigars, when people are talking about them, collectors will go after them just as much as they would for the latest fat ring gauge cigar. But regardless, if you have never experienced these Vitolas, I'm actually a little jealous of you that you're going to get to experience these for the first time. I mean, if I was getting to experience the Ramon Iones Small Club Corona, or the Partagas Short, or the Bolivar Corona Jr., the Monte Cristo No. 5, or the El Rey del Mundo Demitas for the first time, I'd be one excited motherfucker. That's just all there is to it. So the things to take away from this: distributors will be sending out half the stock that they are today to the smaller Regional Habanos SA distributors. So think about where your primary source is located, and do some research, figure out which distributor that they receive their stock from, and whether they're a gray market supplier or not. Speaking of the retailer, and try to take a look at their inventory online and see how they're holding up with their inventory levels. See what their stock is looking like. Understand that you may have to cast a wider net outside of your normal comfort zone for vendors, but do not take unnecessary risks regarding retailers online that you can't find any solid intel from other members of the community that are trustworthy. There's going to be a lot of opportunists coming out of the woodwork in the next few months and in the next couple of years. And we're going to see the strong survive, and those who were not properly prepared, we're going to see them fade away in terms of retailers. So, again, speculation. I predict that the largest and most successful gray market retailers that we know, I predict most of them will walk out of this. Whether they suffer major damage or not remains to be seen. But hopefully, for the sake of them and their livelihoods, that I hope they get through this okay. And I believe that we will see a lot of folks dealing with the price increases and having a hard time finding their favorite cigars. And there's going to be a lot of desperate purchases later on due to the fact of folks not properly preparing for this. Now, I'm not saying that after January 1st, 2022, that you're never going to find another Robusto available on any of the major vendors. But just be aware that we have had it very fucking good for a long time. And things are going to be different for a little while. So before I go on too much and too long about this, I'm going to set this down right here. And I want to hear your opinions on this subject. And I want to hear what steps you guys have taken. What have you guys purchased in anticipation of this coming shortage? When did you find out about it? What have you heard about it? And mainly, I just want to hear your thoughts and how you guys are feeling and what you guys are thinking of the cigars these days. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Stay well and smoke well. I'll have that new feature up by the end of the month. And thank you again. Take care, guys. Have a good night.